Nice to nice to meet you guys. Thank you very much for the time this morning. I guess I should start by identifying Herb Stratford, KMSB Fox 11, and KLPX KFMA FM in Tucson, Arizona. Let me start out by just saying this is such a monumental task. I sort of was, jokingly calling it the mini lives of Billy Joel when I was watching it. How did you guys get involved in this project?
Well, I mean, I was approached by, this is a long story, but I first started talking to his management many, many years ago when I wanted to do this for American Masters, a series I created and left about 12 years ago and started over at HBO. And then I got a call from Sony and none of this was actually going to happen until I got a phone call from Playtone, which is Tom Hanks's company and Gary Getzman's company. And they had been approached about by Hazy Mills, Sean Hayes's company, to co-produce a film on Billy Joel, and they said they would like to do that, but only if I directed it. So that's how it happened.
Well, that's not too long of a story. What about you, Jessica?
Well, Susan and I have been working together for, you ready? Wait for it, 25 years. And I've produced for Susan many times over the years, films that she's directed, along with our other colleague at Pentimento Productions, Emma Pildes, who co-directed a film called The Janes, which was shortlisted for an Oscar a few years ago. So the three of us make up Pentimento, and we have worked together for many years. And on this project, it was a massive project, honestly, as you point out. It was quite an undertaking, and Susan was kind enough to bring me on as co-director. I knew the music well. She was became a you know expert on Billy Joel as she went along. It was a discovery process for her. For me, I knew the catalog well, but I was very delighted to learn so many new things about Billy and really begin to dig in and understand his music in a new way. And I think that's something that's a real gift for fans. People who are fans and think they know everything, trust me, you don't know everything. This film will be revelatory for you. Anyway, Susan was kind enough to bring me on. And I think it was a real labor of love for the two of us together. And we really came to the same place, even though we came from different places, from me knowing the catalog, from Susan discovering the catalog and discovering Billy Joel and who he was. We really ended up in the same kind of emotional and intellectual place, which was really a deeper understanding of this artist that you think you know. But we have news for you. This film is going to give you a lot of information that you had no idea about, and you're going to learn about a man who is just really so complex and so interesting.
And one of the other things that really struck me about while watching your film was the amount of Billy's peers that you were able to get on camera, and not even just like a few people that you would expect, but of course you get the white whale of Paul McCartney, or you get some of these folks that are just like amazing gets. Was that sort of an easy ask when you reached out to their teams? Were they like, "Oh hell yeah, we're happy to be on a doc about Billy"?
I mean, it wasn't, yes, most of them absolutely wanted to be involved in it. They have musicians, critics may not feel the same way, but musicians have a deep respect for Billy's musicianship and his compositional skills and his sophisticated melodies. Scheduling, it was a whole other thing, but they all wanted to participate. The only one who turned us down was Elton John.
Really? So just alluding to sort of that incident that they had, or during going out on tour, and there's sort of some problems that happened. You think that still stains his memory? That's unfortunate.
No, I don't want to say that because I have no idea.
I said
He could have just been busy, and was working on his own documentary about him. So maybe it was just a schedule conflict. We really were never told why, just no.
Did
But
you
Elton
did you
John
guys?
certainly has a presence in the film,
Oh, of
regardless.
course. Yeah, no, no, absolutely. And it does. It's not like he was. I mean, he was missed, but he wasn't missed. But did you guys start out with like a wish list, and then you just sort of went through that? Because I mean, there's so many people over his career, so many decades, so many hits, so many things. I would think it would almost be hard to winnow that down, so we don't just have too many talking heads. Did you just make a list of, hey, in a perfect world, this is who we'd like?
Well, I mean, some of it's illogical, Herb. You want the original band.
Yeah.
You want the Mean Bros, these four guys, the three guys who've been with him for 50 years. You want you want the some of the new band. some of it's quite logical. And then the musicians who I wanted people, the musicians on the same level as Billy, who really knew his music and really we didn't get a lot of younger musicians. We actually did try to get a couple of younger people, and they they were just too busy with their own careers. So that wasn't the only person who turned us down. I want to say we tried a couple of younger musicians who love Billy and are influenced by Billy, but they were just too busy to be able to do it.
Interesting. And it seems like, you guys obviously spent a lot of time with Billy, in different interview settings and things like that. What was, I mean, had you met him before? Was this sort of like a longer process? I mean, how long did this take to get his stuff on film?
Well, I didn't, I did 10 interviews with him. And at the very beginning, I asked him if there were any sensitivities and I said, I won't stay away from them necessarily, but I'd love to know what they are. And he said, Susan, tell the truth. And he didn't see the film till it was finished. He didn't know what we were doing. I think he knew that we were serious minded. I did, from the interview process, that was very much about his music, his process, his where the songs came from, his inspirations. We connected on classical music because my mother was also a classical pianist. We had a shared family history in terms of the Holocaust with some of the same stories. His father and my father came from Germany as German Jews the same year, and they went back to Germany as American soldiers the same year. So there, we had a connection, and that really was from the beginning. And the fact that we could talk about classical music so much, I think it broke a lot of ice. And he opened up. He said, "Tell the truth," and he stuck with that himself. He went to deep places.
Well, and that's one of the things sort of as a follow-up to that. It's a very brave documentary as far as he goes. It's very warts and all. I mean, he's very candid. He's very open. You have so much time with his former wives, and I think it was very honorable because it just again continues to reveal almost like an onion the depths of this man. And he's not just putting out this public persona and that's what he wants people to digest. He's like, this is my life. This is messy, and that must have been very interesting. And like, Jessica, like you said, I grew up listening to this music, and I certainly feel like it's part of the soundtrack of my life. But to hear more about that is just, it makes the song so much richer. And do you guys find yourself listening to things in a different way now that you've talked to the man?
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, Vienna is, I think, the prime example of that for me as a song that Billy had a story about Vienna, which was just, I never believed it for a second that it was about the old woman sweeping in the street and how they respected old people in Vienna, and I finally, last interview, finally got him to admit that it was about his father. He found his father in Vienna when he had to go searching for him. He hadn't heard from him since he left when he was 8 years old, and finds him in Vienna. So I always think people when they see this film, it's become a favorite of fans because I think it speaks to young people as well. But I think you won't hear that song the same way again after you see this movie. And I think that's true of many of the songs. When you hear the stories behind them, you understand how autobiographical his work is. It's a roadmap of his life in many ways. I think everyone, even people who know the music, are going to hear these songs a different way now.
So true.
And it's funny too because I loved when you had Springsteen talking and how he's sort of more associated with New Jersey, of course, and just the idea that Billy is really sort of he's almost like the mascot for New York City. He so embodies the city in so many different ways. And I mean, it feels sort of so nice that he's got that Madison Square Garden thing that he did, and it was the thing that brought him out, and it just sort of enabled him to sort of bask in that glory that has been sort of hit or miss depending on, things that were out of his control. That was a lot of fun. But I wanted to ask about the archival footage. That must have been such an incredible trove to dig through. So he opened his whole everything up to you guys, and there's such great resources. Maybe talk a little bit about that.
Well, Yes, nothing was off limits, and his team got us whatever they had. But a great deal of this was from the Sony archives,
Mm.
and that wasn't organized in any way. I think now it is because of us. But we had a
No,
wonderful.
that's not fair to say, Susan. Billy's archive wasn't so organized. Sony's was
Okay,
plenty organized, but there were some materials within Sony that they just hadn't looked at or transferred in a very long time. So we facilitated that. We dug up things that were not labeled properly, and took chances on bringing material out of that vault that hadn't been looked at in a long time. The other thing that Sony provided us was all the session audio, which, for example, in Cold Spring Harbor, you hear, Artie Ripp's voice, you hear Billy's voice, when he's just this young singer-songwriter that didn't know what he was doing, sitting in this studio in California, and to be able to hear that and understand how naive he was and how new he was to trying to figure out who he was and what he was doing in that studio. I think a lot of those songs people don't even know, so to be able to hear them in the studio and hear the creation process, I think is something that we really owe a debt of gratitude to Sony, because they really did open up, and allow us to pull out session audio, not just from Cold Spring Harbor, but also from The Stranger. You hear Phil Ramone's voice, and that really brings it to life.
and that Sony footage of Billy, which we were very excited to see, playing Piano Man as a young guy.
Yes.
Just such a beautiful piece of footage. That was actually filmed on the signing day when he signed with Columbia, and it had been sitting in a vault for 50 years and never seen before. So that's actually a totally new piece of footage that nobody'd ever seen.
That's probably the most, what, unseen, a surprising unseen. There's a piece of it also used earlier in part one, which is his performance of Traveling Prayer. He's got two musicians in the background, and it's when Clive Davis is talking about how Billy was so charismatic and had so much talent. And he was talking about what he was attracted to with Billy as an artist, and then you see him and his fingers are just flying on the piano, and you're like, whoa, this guy was from the very beginning, just had the energy and had the charisma. And then we go back to that same footage, which that was also shot on the signing day. And then we go back to the footage at the end of the film, and we see him, back to the beginning, back to Piano Man, just Billy and a piano.
And I think that's one of the things that's so interesting to me too, as an aficionado of sort of music documentaries, seeing that artistic process. And I remember there's been so much focus on Laurel Canyon and sort of the West Coast singer-songwriters, and it's really nice to be able to have this counterpart. And I just remember, hearing and seeing parts of like, oh, this is how Jackson Browne composed Doctor My Eyes, and just listening to him bang away at it for hours at a time trying to get it right. And that's something I think a lot of fans don't understand, that these songs just don't come out of people fully formed and they're a number one hit. It's that creative process and those collaborators, and that's just, I think, really great that you were able to capture that. And of course, yeah, I mean, the Piano Man, my jaw hit the floor. It was so great to see that early version of it. So that what a gem to have. You guys have obviously spent a long time on this process and on this film. And I know you've done other things like the Jane Fonda documentary. Would you do another music doc, or are you like, okay, music is done now, I'm going to work on something else because that was a
No,
lot?
no, no, no. Of course, we do another music doc. We're working on developing something right now, but can't talk about it. So, yeah, no, music is a love of both Jessica's and mine. By the way, this is Jessica's first directing after 25 years. This is her first one, so with me, and that was a great experience. But no, we don't make only films about musicians. But I grew up in a musical family. Jessica loves music, so music is it's very dear to us, and we're proud of the work that we do with these documentaries, because we're not doing the expected thing all the time. We go very, very deep, and not everybody does that.
It's true. And our aim is always to, I think Susan mentioned this earlier, but our aim as filmmakers is to discover the artist and try to bring understanding to the audience about what makes these people tick and why are they able to produce this incredible body of work. And I think you learn so much about Billy as a person in this film and how it was so intertwined with his music. His life and his music were just, they just went hand in hand. And it's almost hard to believe Billy could write a song about anything. I mean, anything that happens in his life. It's like it's almost like ripped from the journal of his life, and here comes a song. And it's quite amazing when you really understand that backstory. As you said, you're listening to these songs in a completely new way. You're like, whoa, that actually happened. Piano Man is the obvious example. But there's many other examples in his catalog. I mean, all the way down to Famous Last Words, his last song. That's what was on his mind at the time, which was, gee, what is my legacy going to be? What is my songwriting, the body of my work about? And I think that was for him, that was a very much of a sunset song. And it's when you think of it now with this new perspective of learning in the documentary what he was going through at that time, I think it's really a light bulb goes off.
I mean, he didn't, I mean, he didn't give up writing music. He turned to classical music, but he gave up writing pop songs because
Pop songs, yes, of course.
as he says, he was tired of the tyranny of the rhyme. Writing lyrics was hard for him. Not every song was a long process. I mean, they remember the story of New York State of Mind?
Yeah.
He's in the bus and he has this melody in his head and he gets to the house and he runs up the piano. Where's the piano?
Yeah.
Where's the piano? Because it was a new house. He hadn't been there yet. And he said it probably came out in less than an hour. New York State of Mind, which has now become a standard.
It's an anthem.
Mhm.
So let me wrap by just asking one more question. It's a love letter to fans because it's so complete. Was it always, and I know documentaries, you start with a vision in your head, and of course it goes a different direction once you get into the material, but was it always sort of planned to be this big of a project? I mean, I don't think it could have been done any less for sure, but was it always envisioned by you guys to be this
We
big of a
knew,
two-part?
we knew it was multi-part from the beginning. In fact, at one time it was going to be three parts, and we ended up taking a good bit out of it because it felt a little bit fat. I always think it's better to keep people wanting more. Make it as complete as possible. But want them, a little, you don't want people to go, oh my God, that was so long, I couldn't get through it. But three nights, I think, would have been more than because just more, too much.
All right. Well, thank you very much. It's so great to meet you guys. Congratulations on an epic piece of work. And I think everyone's really going to love it. And I think I might have to watch it a second time.
Well, I hope so. I hope so.
Thank
There's a lot
you.
in there. Thank you so much, Herb.
All
Nice
right.
to meet
Take
you.
care.